Live in 3, 2, 1, go.
Man, if only you guys knew what we were talking about before we started this show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Maximum News episode whatever. I'm Max, that's Syb. The gameplay that you're seeing on screen right now, just before any of you ask, comes from a game called Pray for the Gods, heavily inspired by Shadow of the Colossus. It released in version 1.0 just a few days ago. Highly recommend you go check it out if you're a fan of Shadow of the Colossus. Now, my dog is asleep right now, and hopefully she'll stay asleep for the duration of this podcast. But if she wakes up and you hear something screaming bloody murder, that's what it is. Let's get into the first news item that we want to talk about today. This came to my attention when Ash and I were talking about Halo Infinite live the other day. Ubisoft has not officially, that's not even a word, has officially announced a Splinter Cell remake. Now, before anybody says, "Oh, wait, Max, you were wrong. You said that Ubisoft would never do a new Splinter Cell game." Well, this doesn't count because it's not a new Splinter Cell game. It's a Splinter Cell remake. Doesn't count. Being made by Ubisoft Montreal, same creators of Splinter Cell Blacklist, the game was officially announced via Ubisoft, and we have a few details about it. Apparently, it's not just going to be a straight-up remaster. It is going to be a thorough remake of the stuff that happened in the very first game that released back in the day on Xbox, PS2. The producer of this game, Matt West, said the following: "I think it kind of has to be a remake as opposed to a remaster. Although we're still in the very early stages of development, what we're trying to do is make sure the spirit of the early games remains intact, in all the ways that gave Splinter Cell its identity." According to this article that I'm reading from IGN, it says it will be a linear game. So despite what everybody thinks, what are they going to do? They're just going to make it open world and pump it full of microtransactions? No, apparently it will be a linear game, and the emphasis will be on stealth, not action, and it seems like they're just going to be focusing on the single-player aspect of things. The remake's creative director, Chris Audi, says as well, "It's safe to say a lot of us on the team are stealth purists, and we're behind that level of seriousness when it comes to those kind of mechanics and those sorts of things that we want to see in the game. That makes somebody like me very happy. Ever since Metal Gear Solid 5, there hasn't really been a full-on stealth game for whatever reason. So the fact that we're going to be returning to something that is full-on stealth makes me very happy." And then finally, one of the technical producers of the upcoming remake, Peter Hendrinos, said that veterans of the original Splinter Cell will be working on the remake. So, this, as somebody who has been wanting a new stealth game for a long time, especially Splinter Cell, as many of you have, this makes me a little bit more optimistic instead of just saying, "Oh, well, it's Ubisoft, they're Diet EA, they'll find some way to mess it up." These details give me some optimism, cautious optimism, but optimism nonetheless. Syb, you hear these details. What do you think? And are you a fan of the original Splinter Cell games?
So I've always appreciated them for being way more strategic. I feel that more of the shooter games that the shooter games that we have now today, like the Counter-Strike, the super hyper Twitch, trigger happy, 2 shots you're down, doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
It's I've never liked those because there's not, the strategy is one thing, but it's not everything, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's I personally, again, just my personal annotation, my personal preference when it comes to particular types of games. I think it's a good game, but I don't play them too much. I'm not huge fans of them. I would prefer to play them, especially if there was character customizations, especially if there was that. If there was that, then I would be way more interested in playing the Splinter Cell series. But I never really liked the Splinter, the main protagonist. Never really got interested in him as a character. He seemed kind of very bland to me. But and again, that's not me saying that I think the game was bad. That's just me saying that I didn't connect with the guy. But I think the gameplay is better than a Counter-Strike. I really do, because there's the stealth, the like the logic of like how the fighting goes down, like that kind of stuff. I feel it has a little bit more groundedness in
Yeah.
it than not. I do like the idea of like boy, you better run or like stay out of sight or you're gonna get like killed in like 2-3 shots. It's like that. Having a gameplay where that's like kind of the focus on it is great, other than like the Twitch like craziness that goes on nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's really bad. It's really frustrating because like I've talked a lot how I love mech games, and one of the mech games that I really like is the like anything that's slow, because you have time to react. It's like, oh no, my arm is down. Now I've got to like I got to target this guy with the remaining weapons that I have. I could use the land to your thing, but it's like chess in the sense that there's way more calculations going on at the same time. It's not lightning fast.
Yes.
Not that I don't like lightning fast things. I actually my actual like preferred sport is one of the fastest sports in the world. And that's what I grew up on with. But when it comes to video games, I just hate the speed twitch thing. Maybe it's because I'm looking for something different. I don't know.
Hey man, I do too.
But yeah, so I'm really glad of this, because I'm hoping that we will see like more like just give me a character creator in it, like, and then create a big team of like voice work that you could do for the characters, so that you could play a whole bunch of different kinds of characters, and then give the players the ability to create whatever character they want, and then focus in the main, like following kind of like the main story with like a main protagonist, not a main protagonist, but a character the main protagonist like learns from or works with. And I think that would be the coolest thing, as far as like adding something that gives you a little bit more of like a player interaction with like longevity of the game, being able to play it with friends, because that's the big thing. It's like, I like the idea of playing Splinter Cell with a group of people. Like that's far more interesting to me, doing like a really not PvP. I don't think that fits here, but like infiltrating a massive base.
Yeah.
Like, gosh, that would be so cool to do that with a big group of friends and just doing a lot of stuff. So yes, the kitty says hello.
She's happy about Splinter Cell as well.
Yeah, she agrees with me. The felines of the world have agreed with me. I am right. So I'm hoping that that's what it is. I'm hoping that whatever they do it, justifiably. And for people saying, well, that's changing it. I'm like, no, I don't think it's changing it that much.
No, you can
evolve
it in that way. If you
change the main character, right? Like if you change the main character and you hoist on the main character some kind of like different thing than what the previous main character was, that's one thing. But if you're giving the players the choice to play as whoever, interacting with the older character from the series, and then you literally you're playing as whatever character your avatar in this world, playing with this main protagonist, and you do a bunch of missions with him, and there's a good story there. It's like, I think that would be honoring the thing, as well as giving the game the opportunity to have a lot of like custom play. Because the one thing that I hate in some games when they add multiplayer is like, oh, we're all playing Snape. Cool. We're all the same dude. Okay. Like that's dumb to me. And it's always, yeah, it's one of the things that really frustrated me with the direction that they took Cyberpunk in. As I don't think they could. I really don't think they should have done what they did. And well, I mean, obviously we're now, right? Like hindsight's 2020. And I prefer the previous idea, when it was like the original idea of that game was just to let people play whatever they wanted. You could play as whoever, but then they took that away and they're like, oh, we're going to make it a main protagonist story where you're playing the main character. And it's like, well, clearly that didn't work very well, guys. I'm just saying. So that's what I hope that they don't do here, is that they maintain that focus on giving us the same gameplay that we've had before. But if they're going to add multiplayer, to give a decent character creator, focus on some PvE content, and then that way you and your friends can just have a lot of fun figuring this kind of stuff out, because it's a very strategic, very methodical game, right? And I really like that, and I kind of hope that they they'll stick with that kind of going forward. But that's my 2 cents on wishes on that.
Right. I think I would either agree with you or disagree with you. If you think that the core formula of Splinter Cell games, like we had in the original trilogy, Pandora Tomorrow, Chaos Theory, should be replaced by what you're suggesting, then I disagree. But if you're saying that it could go alongside what we have in the campaign by having these multiplayer elements, then I agree. I think that would be a great example of not either or, but both and. It would be a proper evolution of the Splinter Cell gameplay. We'd be able to still play as Sam Fisher, who I love, and I hope Michael Ironside voices him. Otherwise, I'm not playing the game. And you can evolve upon it in the same way that Metal Gear Solid 5 did with the original stealth formula. By the way, the game you were describing, I don't know if you know this, but that game is Metal Gear Solid 5. Have you ever played that?
Yeah, but it's still not necessarily what, like,
exactly what you want.
It's not exactly what I'm thinking of, because Metal Gear is kind of more based in science fiction than it is in
right, yeah.
And that's what I'm saying is I want something that's really heavily based in trying to go the super realism route.
Well, you're saying that flaming whales that come out of the sky and hit a helicopter out of the sky, that's not rooted in reality? That's what I just want to clarify. That is what you're saying.
Well, that, and I mean, and again, Metal Gear was fine. It's just
not. Yeah, I know what you mean.
And it's like, wasn't there time travel in Metal Gear?
No, there wasn't time travel.
No, it was cloning. It was was it cloning
or gene therapy? Yeah, there was clones, kind of, in that there was DNA taken from a character named Big Boss, implanted into a woman's womb via what's the right word? Not through the usual way, but insemination. And the 3 kids that were born were basically copies, even though they weren't created in a test tube. But yeah, that was the extent of it. Aside from that, there was just genetic manipulation to help make people better soldiers. And if I recall correctly, there wasn't anything that had to do with time travel, at least within the canon of the series. But yeah, I know what you mean. And I have no doubt that given, for all the crap that we give games like Assassin's Creed, at least with the older games, there was an attention to detail in regards to historical accuracy. And I hope that with this game, they maintain some degree of that, and I have faith that they will, given the people that they have on board. All right, let's move on to the next story. Sybil, I'll let you take the lead on this, but before you do, I just want to ask you a very pertinent question. If somebody asks you if you're a god, what do you say?
Well, I mean, you really have to be truthful, and you also have to understand which god they're talking about, like God little g or God big G.
I'm talking about Gozer.
Yeah, well, I'm getting to that. So if Gozer asks you, are you a little g god, you have to be truthful. And in my case, of course, that's yes. Of course I am.
Right.
It's like, duh. And yeah. So, yeah.
I'm glad we're on the same page. That way I wouldn't have to kick you off of this stream like the Ghostbusters got kicked off of that one building. But please, go ahead.
Yeah. So, did you watch Ghostbusters Afterlife yet?
Yes, I did. I liked it.
All right, so I watched it. It was pretty decent. I think that overall it's got a good. They're going in a much better direction, and it's like the last Ghostbusters. Everybody just I barely want to touch it with a 12-foot pole, but you can see that when making a movie that honors the previous history and continues the story and has a really stand-up, amazing main character who's, and there was some complaint on this. I do want to address this as the two of us. I think we have the right to address this. The main character was portrayed to be a bit of a savant or a genius, and I've heard a lot of people say, you can't learn to do all those things. It's like again, yes, you can. Like it depends on who you are, but and I got the feeling the main character was a little on the autistic side,
Yeah.
didn't have any friends, but could establish themselves with machines very well. It's like that is what autistic people do.
By the way, guys, just in case you don't know, if you haven't seen the new movie, he's talking about the main character in Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't want, I'm not going to give away plot or anything. I'm just going to say my piece on that, on the character. Some people were complaining about that. I don't think they have a right to complain on that, because it's like there are people like that in real life. And you say, oh, well, that means they're special. It's like, yeah, well, movies typically follow people that are special, and quote a whole bunch of lines from The Incredibles. So I thought it was really good. It was a little short for me. I would have actually really liked this to be like a 6 hour long series, like movie series. I think that would have been really cool. They could have like gotten in, like, not 12. I don't think there was enough to cover 12 episodes, but maybe like 6 episodes would have been great. Yeah. I think that could have opened up a lot of doors, because I'm really curious to see more about the older Ghostbusters. I really want to see what they're doing. Like they each had very interesting backstories of what they had been doing up until that point, and it would be interesting to get a peek into each of their stories and just kind of see where they're going, and to kind of react to that. And just overall, I think they did a darn good job with what they had to work with, and I hope that they have the ability to work with more. I honestly would suggest, I honestly think they should scrap the whole idea of just doing movies, because I think movies are a dying medium for the most part. I think that with the whole like Corona thing and the change in how we consume content, I think people are looking for more long form content, and I think it's as easy to do a really good short 6 hour mini series than it is to do a single movie. I think that I think that's still roughly about the same amount of time. You get to flesh out more things by having more direct conversations with characters, and doing more things that don't cost tons and tons of money. When you have two characters in a room just chatting or trying to figure something out and having a discussion on that and going into the lore, I think that's, when you do it right, it's just really cool. So anyways, there's a video game coming out, supposedly. I can't say this for sure because this comes from Ernie Hudson, confirmed this.
Ernie Hudson being one of the original Ghostbusters.
Yes, who was in the he was in the it's like a minor spoiler. We'll just say he's in the new movie. So yeah, so he's there. There was we know that Dan Aykroyd is going to be in this game, according to him. He doesn't know if Bill Murray is doing anything, but it's going to at least contain the two of them, and quite possibly several other characters from the movie.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. This is on top of the remastered game that has come out, or that hasn't come out, but is I believe it's on its way. So yeah, that's cool. That's interesting. Yeah, I think the remastered Ghostbusters came out last year. Yeah, I'm thinking right. I think that was last year. I think that was only on PlayStation. So yeah, there's a new one coming out. That's not the remake. That's not the remaster. So that's very interesting. Again, mostly rumors at this point. We don't know what studio. I think. I think the developer Illophonic is working on it.
Okay.
Again, that's coming from a couple of these articles. Apparently, he wasn't supposed to say any of this, so he's kind of got himself into a little bit of a trouble. Hopefully, that doesn't affect whether or not the game is actually made or produced. But this is interesting, and it's interesting just if you're fans of the Ghostbusters game, keep your ear to the ground on this one. It's probably a few years away. I would say it's probably at least 2-3 years away.
Yeah.
But still, that's good because, again, it goes to say that the previous Ghostbusters movie that came out that everybody hated was just poorly written. The actors in it in my humble opinion, they did a fine job as far as portraying the characters they were supposed to portray. I just think the writing was bad, and I don't think the writing honored the memory of what people remembered from the Ghostbusters. I think that's why it failed. I don't think it had anything to do with all the complaints that people throw at it. I think that it was just a poorly written script, because it's like people come out and say, people don't like scary movies with female main protagonists. It's like, that's not true, because
What?
Alien's one of our favorite movies. The whole Alien franchise is, especially the first 2-3 movies, were really decent.
That makes no sense.
And
Like, there's literally
some of the best games. Yeah, I know, and it's like, but it's that's why it's important to call this stuff out when that stuff gets in, because what's one of the greatest shows this year so far? It's Arcane. And what does that entail? It entails three female main characters for the most part, that are, two of them are in a relationship, are starting to get into a relationship with each other, and the other one, she's not a typical like female character, like female like trope type character that people would throw out and say, well, that's just a trope, feeding the male, whatever. It's like no, that's not. It's really well written and well done. Half of these other movies that Hollywood has been producing that bomb, they're not bombing because of that. They're bombing because they're just not done right. There's no logic and coherence to the storyline. The plot doesn't matter, goes all over the place. The characters have widely swinging emotions as far as reacting to other characters that don't make any sense. It's like, when you do something like that, it's a bad product. When you do something that is done right, doesn't matter what the characters are. If it's good, people like it, and Arcane has proven that.
Yeah.
So it really, and again, Ghostbusters, the new one, also proved that by just writing what people wanted in a Ghostbusters movie, made it things that made them enjoy that, and everybody who watched it that I saw was like, wow, that was really great. They really did a stand-up job. That really took me back to my childhood. It's like, that's what people want. They want to go back to their childhood. They don't want to see their favorite thing dragged through the mud in a different way. It's like, they just want you to respect it and respect the story that it told.
Yeah.
And then you can change it with stuff. So I think it was great. I don't think it was bad at all. I think it was spot on, and I'm excited to hopefully that we will see a lot more coming from this down the line.
Yeah, because the new movie does sort of cleanse the palate and make us remind us, despite the faults that it has, which I think the new movie does have faults, but it certainly does remind us why we love the original franchise. And with this new game that's coming out, obviously still very early stages. We don't know much about what it's going to be like. If it's going to be like anything, I hope it's going to be like that Ghostbusters game that came out.
So Old Man in the comments has commented that the remake that was released, it was released on Steam. Sorry, not Steam, Epic. My bad. Oh, geez. It was released on Epic recently. And I think that's why it did so well. Is that what they did with that game is they remastered it faithfully to the story of the original, and that original story had good writing. And I think that's why PlayStation and Epic have had pretty good success with the remake, is because they followed what people wanted originally.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I hope that they'll sort of give us what we got with that original game, which a lot of people said might as well have been Ghostbusters 3, at least people that were fans of Ghostbusters and played that game. I hope that, regardless of what they do with this new game, whether it's a continuation with the old Ghostbusters or they sort of bring in the new Ghostbusters, I'd actually be fine with either, because I actually didn't mind the kids that they had in the new movie that were doing all of their grandparents' job for them. That's not a spoiler, by the way. We see that in the trailer. I'll be fine with either. I'm just a little bit worried that Ilphonic, you said they're doing it. These are the same guys that made the Friday the 13th game, which a lot of people enjoy, but they also made Predator Hunting Grounds, which was pretty much universally panned. So hopefully by
when
doing.
it comes to Alien games, most studios don't have a good track record of doing it right. And when I say Alien games, I'm obviously I'm including the Predator games in with that list, because for a while they were helped by the same IP. They're part of the same IP in a lot of ways. I don't know if that's still the case or not. I remember them talking about splitting up the Predator and the Alien franchises and IPs into being separate universes, which is weird because they were the same universe from the inception, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of wonky that they would do that, but it's So we'll see where it goes.
One day I hope they do the same thing that with Alien and Predator, like they did with Godzilla and Kong. That would be so cool. Let's move on to the next story. Speaking of freaky looking creatures, I guess that's a transition. Slitter Head. This was a game that was announced at the Game Awards just over a week ago. Gosh, it was on the 9th. Wow. Yeah, it's been almost 10 days. God, time flies by way too quickly. So Slitter Head, in case you guys don't remember this game, it had like a whole bunch of freaky looking monsters. It's being worked on by Keiichiro Toyama. He's the guy that made the original Silent Hill. He also did a very underappreciated game called Siren, which I actually did a video on about a month ago. And he also did Gravity Rush. He is going to be making this new game called Slitter Head. He also got the guy who scored the original Silent Hill games, Akira Yamaoka, on there to do the score. And it looks very interesting from the trailer. We weren't entirely sure what to make of it, especially because, if it's these guys, you'd expect something a little bit more akin to Silent Hill. But we didn't really get that with the trailer, but we weren't entirely sure. But thankfully, some new gameplay details will come out from IGN Japan doing an interview with Mr. Toyama. This is what we can expect from this upcoming game. Apparently, it will be more action-oriented. So not like Silent Hill, where you're just walking through the darkness, picking up stuff and opening doors. But it will be in third person. There will apparently be new mechanics in the game that have not been seen so far in other games, which, if you know anything about Keiichiro Toyama's games, that seems to be something that he likes to do, is introducing game mechanics that you've never really seen in other things, especially with Siren. One of the sort of the famed mechanic of that game is that you can see through the eyes of your enemies by sort of jacking into their consciousness. So we'll see how that. I don't know how they're going to do that with this game, but it'll be interesting. One thing that we do know for sure is that a major part of this game will be monsters imitating humans, and you will need to try and figure out who is or isn't a monster. So kind of like, I think that's how Among Us is like. It's also like, what's the name of that game, that free game on PlayStation where it's like Among Us, but it's like set in the 50s. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, please let me know in the comments section below. I just can't remember the name of it. Also, just a couple other things. The setting will be inspired by 1980s/1990s Hong Kong, and the production seems to be on track to finish at the end of next year, maybe releasing in 2023. So, hopefully everything turns out okay with that. Does any of this new information get you more or less excited, Saib, about Slitterhead?
I gotta see it. Like, with all these kinds of, like, horror games are typically not my jam.
Mm-hmm.
And the typical reason for that is because most of them rely on jump scares, illogical jump scares.
Yeah.
And just like in the movies, I hate illogical jump scares where woman's running in the middle of a field and suddenly in the middle of a field that has maybe inch-high grass, a scary man pops up in front of her. It's like, did the dude phase into reality? Is she screaming because the dude phased into reality, or is she screaming because a scary man popped up in front of her? It's like, that's the things that I hate. I hate that. It's so poor, because it's like that, and like somebody walks into a room. It's clearly a big room, and there's somebody, like, I think one of the scenes that I remember the most is that Spider-Man scene where he's hanging above the roof while everybody walks into the room.
Yeah.
And it's like if you actually, so it's a 12-foot ceiling, right? 12-foot ceiling. If you walk into a 12-foot ceiling room and you're standing in the doorway, your peripheral vision will see everything above you, with the exception of the small 1-foot space directly above you. That's how peripheral vision works. And apparently they don't know how to do that. So I know. Most everybody tells me, Syb, calm down. It's you're thinking too logically on this stuff. And it's like, that's typically my problem. So if it's a horror game and if they do it right with actual fear mechanics, and there was an Alien Isolation. That wasn't a jump scare game.
Mm-hmm.
That was just legitimately a good horror game, an amazing horror game that is absolutely phenomenal, and I praise that exceptionally well. I think it is fantastic, and I know that what they're going with the other kind of way that they typically do horror games is terrible, and again, some people like it, and I don't dislike anybody for liking that. I think it's fine.
Yeah,
but yeah, so we'll see.
Different types of horror for different types of people. I think if anybody's going to handle it correctly, it will be Katrio, because he's clearly demonstrated with games like Silent Hill and Siren that horror, especially in regards to games, is best exemplified not necessarily with jump scares, but with tension. And I don't recall there being really any jump scares in those 2 previous games that he did. Even if this game is more action-oriented, I do imagine he'll be able to get under our skin by just making everything really, really creepy and, not knowing, just being vulnerable inside this crazy world. I can't wait for it. It'll be the closest thing that we'll probably get to Silent Hill, at least for the next few years, even if it is more action-oriented. And then finally, we're at a pretty good pace today. We got a little bit of a story to tell you guys about in regards to Stalker 2. Stalker is a series that a lot of people have been begging me to play. I think it's called Rise of Chernobyl. Apparently there's just some stuff in regards to the story that would work well with the type of games that I cover on my channel. I just need to find somebody who can mod the crap out of the original game for me, because apparently that's the way you're supposed to play it. But Stalker 2, that one's...
Everything's better with mods.
Oh, absolutely. And in regards to Stalker 2... it seems like there's been some things going on in regards to the way it's going to come out that people aren't particularly happy with. Apparently, there's going to be content locked behind a paywall. There's a season pass, which, despite all that, even though people are pissed off about that sort of stuff, people have just come to realize it's an unfortunate mainstay in modern games. But what really set people off this past week was the addition of NFTs, non-fungible tokens, in regards to the experience. I'm still trying to wrap my head around what NFTs are, why they're a good thing, why they're a bad thing. But generally speaking, based on what knowledge I have, it just seems like more of a way to introduce monetary practices into the world of gaming, when really those things should try to be kept apart as far as possible, unless you're doing a free-to-play game and you're just selling aesthetics, and that's fine. But yeah, in regards to Stalker 2, it looked like the company making the game were trying to get people to invest in these digital assets so they can have some sort of ownership over the game. One thing they were trying to do was trying to auction off currently faceless NPC, and whoever invested the most in it would be able to have their likeness imported into the game, right? But unfortunately for the company, they had a whole bunch of backlash from people saying, no, can you please stop trying to monetize the crap out of everything? Games are supposed to be an escape from the evils of real life, one of which is money. And Stalker 2, especially with the way that people, like the main foundation of that fan base, enjoyed the original Stalker, it was you buy the original game and then you play it for years, using mods and all that, and playing with your friends. And because of the huge backlash on account of the addition of non-fungible tokens into their metaverse, if you will, the game creators said, okay, we heard you, we're not gonna put these into the game. And they still have all that other crap that they introduced, that hopefully I guess the people that are Stalker fans are going to try and get them to take out of the game before release, but at least they had this small victory with this. Syb, just as somebody as just I'm not, like I just said, I'm not that well read when it comes to the world of non-fungible tokens and their implementation into games. Aside from just making games more focused on, spending additional money in regards to them, why would it be a bad idea to introduce these things into our games, including Stalker 2?
There's a ton of bloat that comes with this kind of stuff. Because in order to do it the way that it's being advertised, people don't understand. If you're going to offer 1 billion separate items for sale in a game, the game has to have those in the system. So we're talking about just enormous amounts of space. Then the other thing that happens is, like, once those games go down, those items are gone unless they have develop some kind of system to, like, allow you to transition it into different games or different IPs or the next game that's come out. And even then, I really question, this is a really bad cash grab.
Mm.
I think everybody realizes that. I think everybody sees that, except for a bunch of suckers out there who are going to be hit with a bill of goods as a sale item. Here's your bill, sir. Where's my meal? Oh, the meal goes to us. We're just, what you ordered was for us, and here's the bill. You get to have this bill. And you're like, well, that's not fair. And it's like, yeah, that's what this stuff is going to be. And I swear, it's going to get bad. It's going to get really bad. And again, if you want more government intervention in your video games, yeah, keep pushing this. And I'm talking to the corporations. I'm talking to these developers who are making this. If you want government to come in and be like, hey, that's a nice China shop you got going on here. Shame of a bull entered it. Oh, yes, you better pay us some protection money in the form of a cut into your... That's what's going to happen. And it's really bad. It's a terrible choice. And for the love of God, don't get into this stuff. Stay away from this stuff. I cannot see... I can sort of see where it might be good. Mm-hmm. I can sort of see where it might be good. But that's if the companies were really invested in the idea of doing something special and unique for you and you alone, an individual player amongst all their other players, that they're going to go out of their way and they're just going to really make you feel special.
Right. But
I don't think that's what they're going to do. Agreed. I don't think they're going to do that at all. I think they're going to constantly find new ways to make you pay more for what you're getting already.
Yeah. Because why should we expect anything else given the way that stuff has been monetized in regards to games? Yeah, okay, that makes more sense. And plus, just with how new this, the blockchain technology and all that crap is, there's still some things that have to be dealt with before it can be treated as a viable way of investing your money if it ever gets there. It's sort of like why Bitcoin, as popular as it is and as much as people are investing in it, it's still not as widespread. It's not such a widespread phenomenon as it should be, so that people can.
Yeah, well, I mean, but Bitcoin's also something that is, it's like people agreeing on a particular new currency, right? It legitimately makes sense in a lot of ways, and it has innate value, and it has an innate level of security on it.
Yes, yes.
These things don't.
Yes.
These things don't at all. You can buy a pair of sneakers in a video game for your character, and you'll be like, I'm the only one with these sneakers. And you walk into a room, and somebody else is wearing the exact same sneakers that you're wearing. And you'll be like, what's going on here? And it will either be one of two things. Either the person's modded it, or the dev will show up. Oh, well, actually, those are different sneakers. You see on the bottom left side of the sole, if you zoom in 1,000%, you'll see a tiny little white dot on yours, and on his, you'll see a tiny little blue dot. They're different items. Honk, honk. Woo-hoo-hoo. I'm doing a clown impression if you haven't figured that out. It's like, that's what's going to happen. And you're
Right.
not going to feel special. You're not going to get something that is actually different.
Viable. Yeah.
You're getting something that is the same as everybody else, just ever so slightly different, ever so tiny bit different. And it's like,
And then after a while, a whole bunch of people will catch on to how it's really not as special as everybody else says it is. Because
exactly.
there's just too many variables. It's just too subjective as to whether or not something has value compared to something like Bitcoin or something as long-standing like gold, where people just generally agree, okay, yeah, we invest here. There is some general value here, and then we
Yeah.
can grow our assets. Yeah. And just, yeah.
I guarantee you, there's some people out there going, yo man, I'm gonna buy those sneakers, and then in like 10 years, I'm gonna sell those sneakers for like $1 million. I'm like,
Okay.
no, that's not how it's gonna go, buddy. You think it is, but it's not. And I'm not gonna be wrong on this. These purchases that people are making today, they're only valuable because people want them today.
Yeah.
In 5 years, nobody's going to want your stupid sneakers when they can buy 15,000 different other sneakers that are 1,000 times better visually.
Yeah.
That's the way this stuff works.
I buy Yu-Gi-Oh
It's
cards.
not like
Sorry, go
it's
ahead.
not like Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, there's a limit of how many Bitcoins can be out there. That's why they have such a good value. That generally speaking, because of the way that Bitcoin, not Bitcoins in general, but the way that the actual the big one, the one that's worth so much right now,
Yeah.
is worth what it is because there's a limited supply of them. Even if you could advance computing to a quantum level, you still have a limited number of the ones that you can pump out. And because of that, they have intrinsic worth because there's so few. And when everybody agrees that something that has that does not have an infinite supply is something that is a very small supply is worth something, you form your economy around it. Unless that thing changes, unless there's a new truckload of that stuff that arrives, that is a very solid thing to base your investments and your economy and your currency in, because you know that it's not going to become diluted the next day. People who base their currency on flowers were really stupid. People who base their investment on apricot seeds, really stupid. Your investments aren't going to last. They might last for a season or two, and you'll see a lot of people get really rich with NFTs, and you'll see a lot of people pour a lot of money into it that they think is a long-term investment, and then they're going to discover that it's not. Now, if you were getting like, again, there's ways that you can do this that doesn't necessarily do that, but in the vast majority of cases, that's not what's going to happen here. Somebody's going to find a way to just make it whatever. And then there's also the fact that because it's a digital item, like people who are buying pictures, it's like people who are buying pictures and video clips. Like these people are fools, because when you buy a picture or a video clip, there's nothing preventing somebody else from having that video or picture content. And if you think you can take them to small claims court over that, like maybe in like 40 years when technology is caught up on this level, probably not 40, probably like maybe 20-ish, like maybe. But even then, you're not going to have success with this. This is so many things wrong with this on so many levels. And again, lots of people are going to make a lot of money out of this really quickly. It's the next scam.
Yeah,
it's the next pyramid scam. Basically, it's not essentially a pyramid scam because it doesn't operate in that way, shape, and form. But it is a scam in that people say, oh yeah, we have this content that you'll be able to buy and it'll be yours. But then somebody can replicate something that's very similar to that and basically does the same thing. It's like if you, it's not like if a thing in the physical world that takes effort. I can alter your NFT enough that it's considered not yours anymore, in a sense of like just copying the image and adding some small changes to it.
Yeah.
Modders are going to do that all the time with digital things in video games. And again, the people that are putting this into their games, they're doing it so they can make massive amounts of money. They can ride a wave, and then they can ride off into the sunset with all your hard-earned money. Don't be fooled. This is a fool's game. Don't for the life of me.
I hear everything that you're saying, Sai, but just hear me out on this one thing, okay? I was talking with Sai with Ash about this the other day. I thought about creating a non-fungible token that is just like a little document that says Max Derrat Soul, and then I sell that for like $500. I think that's an easy way for me to be able to buy myself a Nintendo Switch. What do you think about that?
I would never sell your soul because yeah, there's creepy people out there who like to collect those things.
Mm-hmm.
You never know what they're gonna do with it.
What they'll do with your soul? They'll sacrifice it on the altar of Baal.
That is a reference to my reference was to a really really old episode of was The Simpsons.
The Simpsons, yeah. When Milhouse gets his soul and then he starts acting crazy, and then. Oh yeah, what happened to his soul? Then it got sold to Comic Book Guy.
Then Lisa bought it, but she pretended like she had the Comic Book Guy say that a very old creepy couple was in here and they bought your soul and they were very interested in young boys' souls
for some reason, right? Yeah, definitely sounds like a cult of Baal. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the stories that we have for this week.
Thanks for all. Yeah, guys, yes, I have been seeing it. Thanks, Sentinel. Thanks, Old Man. Thanks, IX. It's great to see you guys come by. I hope like the show's still like what we're in our third week or second week, third week, essentially, right?
I think we've been doing it for like over a month now.
Oh, maybe it has been a month. I just got off work. It's great. I'm going to be around for a lot more. It's going to be awesome. So yeah, there's lots more cool things for us. We're going to be covering all kinds of stuff, so spread the word. We're hope you enjoy it.
We're probably not going to be here next week, right? Because it'll be Christmas Eve and Christmas.
Maybe not. I haven't decided what we'll do for Christmas. Like sometimes we're tossing around some ideas, and you're right. We might not be around next week. So
okay. But we will be continuing. We're just not exactly sure of the date. Thanks, everybody who tuned into the live version of this. We were going to pre-record it yesterday, but we just ran out of time. But yeah, this was I enjoyed doing this just as much. By the way, just in case you didn't hear the beginning of this broadcast, this game that you're seeing on screen right now is a game called Pray for the Gods. It's spelled in a weird way. It's spelled Praey. It just came out of early access. The full version of the game is now available. You can get it on Steam, PS5, and Xbox. And if you're a fan of Shadow of the Colossus, I highly recommend you go and check it out. I want to thank Saib, as always, for doing this with me. Make sure you go and check out the Triple S League and all the stuff that they got going on over there. I'll put a link to that in the description box below. And as for the content that I do on my channel, I'll put a link to that. You can find me anywhere on the internet, just at Max Derrat. And until we do this again next time, I want to wish you guys a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, a Kwasi Kwanzaa, a tip-top Tet, and a solemn yet humble Ramadan. I think that's how Krusty says it in The Simpsons. Happy holidays. Bye, guys.